This weekend, Chelsea take on Leicester City in a game that has three main factors going into it: the extensive history between the two clubs and this newborn rivalry that's developed, Enzo Maresca of course facing his former club for the first time, and one final imperative thing that we'll talk about a little later. Lads, lasses and the rest of the masses, welcome back to the lead-in. Let's go. Firstly, let's talk about the history. These two teams have met numerous times over the course of the last century and a bit. In fact, Leicester were one of our first ever opponents back when we were in the old Division 2 back in 1905, and these clubs keep seeming to pop up in each other's stories. When Leicester famously won the Premier League in 2015-16, it was Chelsea's Eden Hazard that helped seal that championship with a brilliant goal versus Tottenham. The season after, we took N'Golo Kanté from them and immediately won the league, with NG eventually going on to become a Chelsea legend. Even more recent signings, Ben Chilwell, who came over and helped Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea lift the UEFA Champions League. Our clubs seem to be connected by fate, kind of intrinsically linked. But in recent years, the fixture has gained a bit more bite due to some off-field actions when Leicester City notoriously beat us in the FA Cup final back in 2021. Ever since then, this fixture has been full of fight, full of excitement, and is one I personally look forward to every single time these two teams draw each other. Last season was a prime example of that, a really good contest in the FA Cup between Enzo Maresca's title-winning Leicester City team and Chelsea that saw the Blues come out on top. Let's talk about some lineups now, and then we'll go over some of the tactical nuances we need to look out for in this game. Let's start with Leicester and their absentees. This could be a game-defining set of missing players for them. They will be without Abdul Fatawu, who has suffered an ACL injury over the international break, as well as Ricardo Pereira and Jakub Stolajic due to injury, and Facundo Buonanotte, who is serving a suspension. There are doubts over a lot of other players though, namely Bobby D. Cordova-Reid, Jordan Ayew, Patson Daka, and the ever-great Jamie Vardy. The sheer number of attacking injuries they have could very well shape the outcome of this match, but let's take a look at what they possibly could field. I'll be aligning them in the 4-3-3 as ever. Starting with the goalkeeper, I don't expect to see change here. Their number 1, Mads Hermansen, retains his place from their previous fixture. The backline will stay the exact same too. Due to Pereira's injury, James Justin starts at a more familiar position of right back. The centre-back partnership is the same one that served them very well in the Championship. Wout Faes and Yannick Vestergaard start in the right and left centre-back spots respectively. Finally, over on the left will be Victor Christensen, who will be hoping not to score another own goal this time out. Moving into the midfield, again this isn't changing in my opinion, so the same trio that started versus Manchester United start here. On the right, Boubakary Samare, in the centre, Harry Winks, and finally over on the left will be Wilfred Ndidi. Finally, let's move on to the front three, and this is wild because not a single player that started last time is available, so it's an entirely rotated front line. Starting with the right side, I expect to see Moroccan Bilal El Khanous. Over on the left, it's a return to the starting 11 for danger man Steffi Mavididi, and finally, down the centre, it's an opportunity for former Crystal Palace forward Odsonne Edouard. Now let's turn our attention to Chelsea and see what our lineup for this game could be. There's only one absentee for this game, that being the recently re-injured Reece James, which is super sad to hear after he had played a few games in a row unscathed. All other players are fit and ready to play some involvement, which means Jadon Sancho returns to the squad. So, with that being said, I'll be putting Enzo Maresca's Chelsea team in the 4-3-3 formation once again, with a few changes from the game versus Arsenal. Starting with the goalkeeper, I'm going to be putting in Robert Sanchez. He's the keeper with the highest save percentage per shots faced in the league, but also has the most errors leading to goals too, so let's hope we get the former in this one. For the back four, it's going to be going back to a familiar backline. Starting with the right back, it's going to be Malo Gusto. The centre-back partnership is one we've gotten used to in the league, as Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill start in the right and left centre-back spots respectively once again. Finally, over on the left, I'll be putting in Marc Cucurella. He was superb versus Arsenal, and I hope to see the same here. Moving into the midfield, this poses a little bit of a problem. Romeo Lavia suffered a minor hamstring problem, so although he's fit again, I don't expect him to start. So despite arriving late from international duty, I expect to see Moises Caicedo start in the holding role off of the back of becoming a father. Congratulations, Moi. Ahead of him in the more advanced roles, I think this picks itself. Cole Palmer starts on the right hand side, as fellow late arrival from South America Enzo Fernandez starts on the left, after some impressive displays for his home nation. Ahead of them in the attacking roles, this is a nightmare selection headache for Enzo Maresca. All of our wide players have been in good form, as well as more central players like Joao Felix, but I'm going to go for the two players I personally think give us a nice balance. Starting with the right side, despite Noni Madueke doing very well for England recently, I think that Pedro Neto takes his place in the starting 11 here. He scored that wonder goal against Arsenal, and I think he deserves a start in his favoured right-sided position. Over on the left, I'm going to be putting in Misha Mudryk. He's in fine form for club and country recently, and with Sancho only just returning from injury, I'd expect to see the fitter of the two right-footers to start, with the other starting in the Conference League next week. Finally, up top will be Nicholas Jackson. Of course he'll play, and hopefully he can get back to scoring ways against this lesser defence. Before we talk tactics though, it's time for the question of the day. Which winger pairing would you choose for this game, and why? Leave your answers in the comment section down below, and I'll pin my favourite response. Alright, now let's get into more of the tactical side of this game, and I think there's some interesting things that we can take from Leicester's previous games that we can kind of exploit, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Firstly, here we have the team. Let's put them into the formation that we kind of will see in game, and most of the time when we are in possession, we will probably see a lot of possession in this game considering how Leicester play and how dominant we can be in terms of keeping possession, and so I think we'll see this quite often, and we have two options here. Obviously, we're going to invert one of the fullbacks. That's a common thing that we do. Whether that be Gusto or Cucurella is up to Enzo Maresca, but we have kind of seen that Gusto has been the one that has been tasked with being this inverted player for the majority of the time. And in this system with Cucurella as the left centre-back, I think this suits us more because we get Wesley Fofana out on this right-hand side where he's quite comfortable to use his pace and be able to still contribute going forward, but also use his pace going backwards. And obviously we get Levi Colwill in this central role where he can dictate play and play the line-breaking passes that we know he can do. Obviously Cucurella, insanely good defender, 1v1 nowadays, very, very good when he does come into the attack as well. If he wants to overlap, if he wants to get up high, he can, especially in a team like this where we can hold the ball and use our counter press to get the ball back, and he can contribute offensively as well. This is a really good role for him too. Now with this inversion of Gusto, this obviously means that we'll have to shift the midfield around, and obviously we normally see the box midfield, right? We normally see Caicedo play as the deeper midfielder with the inverted fullback, and then we see Enzo pushing up into one of the 10s, we see Palmer obviously playing as one of the 10s, but recently we've obviously tweaked this, right? And we've been seeing Palmer end up in these central positions, where I think that he is better to be playing here. He's better when he's more involved in the central areas, especially coming off of the right hand side. He's much better here than what we've kind of been seeing recently. We've been seeing Palmer being played over on the left hand side, which hasn't been working very well. Hopefully now that we have Gusto over on this natural right back position and Cucurella in the team, we can actually see this happening again, with Gusto playing as this kind of 8, this right-sided 8, and Caicedo acting as the holding player. Enzo can be a little bit deeper here. He will get up to support, obviously, but he can play a little bit deeper, receive the balls from the back, and then kind of dictate play, like we saw when he came on in the Arsenal game. And Palmer can take up this central position when we get the diamond that we've been so accustomed to seeing in recent times. Now, looking a bit further up the team, we obviously have Neto, Jackson, and Mudryk. I had Sancho in here, but I have changed that out for Mudryk since. And the reason why I've kind of put these two in, and I didn't really get to explain it much in the actual lineup, I'll kind of explain it a little bit here. Honestly, I think Neto is by far our best winger at this point in time in terms of current form. I think Madueke has been playing very, very well for England, but Neto has really started to rise in terms of his not only his creative attributes, but also his now goal scoring. He's actually getting some of the goals now. We see him come off the right-hand side and immediately give us a goal contribution with a stunner from outside the box. When he's shoved over to this left-hand side, I just don't think he provides as much as he could on this right-hand side, and I think that Madueke has, despite, as I said, playing well for England, he hasn't really put in the best shift recently for Chelsea. I think we want to have a right footer on one side and a left footer on the other. I think that gives us more balance, but I don't think Sancho is going to come straight into the 11. I don't think he deserves to come straight back into the 11. I think that Mudryk kind of has warranted a place in this team because of how good he's been, and obviously he's been good for club and country recently. I think that he maybe gets a run out, and then we get to see Sancho in the Conference League against Heidenheim. I think that would probably be what we do. Jackson obviously plays, and there's obviously some questions. We could see Joao Felix maybe play. He's been playing very, very well. Obviously, there's been question marks over Nkunku and whether Nkunku should be getting a starting place. I personally think that Jackson starts over those two. He's our main striker, and I think he'll probably find some success against this Leicester team as we kind of talk about how they function. Now, for this episode, I'm going to be focusing mainly on Leicester's weaknesses and what we can kind of do to exploit them. But firstly, let's explore some things that we should be mindful of and what we can possibly be caught out out in terms of Leicester's strengths. Now, the first thing I would like to say is they have a lot of energy, especially in the midfield. And if we bring those midfielders in, we can show like how they kind of operate. And it's funny because it's kind of similar still, despite them obviously having a new manager, because it's actually very similar to how Enzo Maresca set up his midfield when he was the coach at Leicester, and they haven't really changed in terms of the way that they like to kind of operate. They still like to get one of the front men, whether that be a winger or possibly the striker, most likely the striker, to kind of drop in and become that fourth man in midfield. They don't really do the invert thing as much anymore, and especially when they have got so many injuries, and now they've got having to play James Justin on this right hand side where he usually operates on the left, even though he's a right footer. Obviously Ricardo Pereira, who would be the one that would kind of invert if they were doing that, he's injured, so they probably won't do that. But they have a lot of energy in the midfield. They're very industrious. They have Samare, Winks, and Ndidi especially, who, despite originally when he kind of came to the Premier League, we knew him as a 6. He's way more of an 8 in this new era Leicester side, and he will get up high and try and get into the box. Very loads of energy from him. Winks, we know how good he can be as an 8 and as well as a deep line playmaker at times. And then Samare, again, on the right hand side, he can do both, but he is a little bit more defensive, I would suggest. And what we kind of see from this Leicester team as we kind of push Chelsea back into the 4, as we'll kind of end up playing when we kind of drop deep to defend, we see that when we're building out from the back and we're trying to get the ball forward, Leicester do like to play a high line. Not as high as some teams will, like not as high as West Ham, not as high as say Tottenham, but they do like to push their team quite high. They do like to try and step on the gas and try and win the ball early. I think that's one of their main things, is they want to win the ball early and try and spring counter-attacks, try and get the ball off you in these kind of halfway line scenarios, and when they do, they can get it out to the wide areas where their main threats are. They have a lot of pace on the counter, especially down the wings. On this occasion, we have Steffi Mavididi on this left-hand side, who I think is going to be the main danger man we kind of need to watch out for. I think he's going to be the one we need to lock up. Obviously, we've got Gusto on the side, and especially considering this is the side which we like to invert. As I often say, if we do not get the inverted player back in time, in order to stop this counter-attack and the ball does go out to Steffi Mavididi, he can definitely take on his man and get forward. And obviously, the way that Leicester operated under Enzo Maresca is still in the back of the minds of these wingers, because the one thing that Enzo Maresca's team loves to do, and we've seen this, is create 1v1s, get those 1v1 opportunities and get the wingers and the striker running at their opposite number. And obviously, even though this is a weakened side, they don't have as many attacking options as they probably would have done if they weren't for all the injuries. Obviously, a few of them are down, so we might see some, but I don't think they would risk a lot of the players. The main one being lost is obviously Fatawu. He would have 100% been in the starting 11 if he was playing, but alas, he's not able to play because he's got that ACL injury. Steffi Mavididi is going to be the main danger, and if they can get out to the wings and get us going on the counter-attack or on the just on the transition in those kind of pockets where we have made mistakes in the past of trying to play out from the back, especially with Sanchez. He's been a bit suspect at times from playing out from the back, and if we do lose the ball up high, they can definitely capitalize on that. Now, I mentioned that they have remnants of that old Maresca style, and one of the main kind of benefits of that, which we see in this team, is Outfox. He still plays that same kind of way that we see Levi Colwill now playing. Well, whilst he's not playing in the central role, he is still the one that likes to step up a little bit higher, try and look for the passes in between the lines and through the midfield. And a lot of the time we will see obviously Jamie Vardy or Patson Daka, whoever is playing here, they probably won't be playing considering they're both injured in this game, but we see them dropping deep, or one of the wingers dropping deep, and he will fizz the ball into feet, and once they get past this line, completely nullifying the press, because we will obviously try and press them whilst they're in possession, get high, try and disrupt them. When they get the ball here, they'll try and play it around to the wingers, or again try and bounce it off a midfielder to go forward down the wings. They like to do this a lot, and obviously, do I think this will be as successful against us? Probably not, considering how good Caicedo is, but our midfield is going to be quite tired if we are playing the way that I've set them up, because both of these two are coming back from very late kickoffs over in South America, and they get back late, so they are going to be tired. I don't think they're going to be 100% for this game. I don't think they need to be, particularly. I don't think they need to be 100%, but there is something for us to watch out for. Maybe, as I've said, the midfield of Leicester is very energetic, and if they are able to overwhelm us in these regards, or if the striker is able to pop it around the corner before our players can get back to them and kind of take the ball off them, like Caicedo does so often, maybe we can see us get exposed with these kind of 3v3s at the back here, obviously with Gusto being inverted and being out of the picture. And the last thing I wanted to mention is just the set pieces, right? I have been very susceptible to set pieces in our own right this season. We haven't been the greatest defensive organisation at the back at times, and the one thing that they do have is tall centre-backs. Obviously, we have Outfox and Yannick Vestergaard, who is very, very tall, obviously ex-Southampton player. We saw him get a lot of be the target of a lot of set pieces and throw-ins and free kicks and things like that back when he was out there, and he still does the same thing here at Leicester, and I do think he would play. I imagine he'd play. He's going to be the main danger man in the box, and we kind of have to pick up on him, but not just on him. Obviously they've got Wout fast, they've got Ndidi, who's, again, he's now playing more of this 8 role, and he can kind of arrive late, almost in that kind of that Scott McTominay type role. He likes to get up into the advanced areas and try and win headers and things like that. Obviously Samara on the other side too. They can all be danger men from those scenarios, and we just need to shore up a bit, be a bit more professional, because we have been leaking goals from those types of scenarios and kind of getting let off the hook at times. And this is a good segue for one of their weaknesses that I want to highlight here, and we'll talk about the weaknesses now and then kind of how we can exploit them in their own right. They are one of the teams in the league that cannot create chances or big chances. They're very, very struggle at doing this. In terms of teams that they are in the same kind of realm as, they have 18 big chances created, which is the 4th lowest in the league. They are very close to teams like West Ham, Everton, Southampton in terms of those metrics. They actually have missed 10 of those 18 big chances, which, whilst is the lowest in the league in terms of numbers, isn't particularly the best ratio, with over half of their big chances going to waste. As a smaller team needing goals, they have to be more clinical. Now, that's already a concern for them in terms of them not being the greatest in terms of clinical finishing, but now they've even got less options in the attacking roles, and I think that is going to be a matter of them being quite toothless in this game. I don't think that they're going to pose much of a threat unless we let them, and I think that genuinely, if we do concede against Leicester in this game, it's probably going to be down to one of those defensive mistakes, and that's kind of why it led me on to this segue here, because I feel like if we can eliminate those mistakes and not make those defensive lapses and not get caught out by set pieces and not switch off at swiftly taken free kicks and those types of things, I don't think Leicester will pose much of a threat in terms of actually goal scoring. They haven't shown this season that they're able to do that, and yeah, again, injuries have played part in that. They have been having injuries quite a lot of the season so far. Obviously they've been missing big players, and this game especially is one of those where they've got about 5 or 6 of their attacking players, or attack minded players from midfield as well, that just aren't able to play. So if we can stop them from making inroads that way, I don't think they're going to be able to score, so hopefully we can kind of shut out those ideas. Other than that, it's mainly just punishing them for being too adventurous, because despite them not being able to create many chances and not scoring many chances, as I said, they do like to play a high line, they do like to step on you, and against a team like Chelsea, I think this would be a horrific mistake, and I don't know if they would probably adapt to this. I don't think they would be silly enough to play a very, very high line against us, considering the threat that we obviously pose on the counter-attack with players like Jackson, players like Neto, players like Palmer, who's able to play the ball in behind, those types of things. We've been notorious this season for being very good on the transition, and I'm not sure that a lot of teams would kind of let us do that. Leicester might be one of those that is foolish enough to kind of step up and do this, and if they do, with this high line, with this high press, and with their fullbacks overlapping, because we've seen them do that. Obviously, James Justin likes to get up high when he can. Christensen at times gets it up into the box and is able to try and score goals in the other box, despite him recently scoring goals in his own half. And that's another thing which they struggle with, is own goals. This is a fun fact for you. Leicester have the most amount of own goals this season out of any team in the league. Admittedly, that is only 2, but that's more than any other team in the league. They just are a bit disorganised at times, and those kind of mistakes can happen when communication's not there, or a player misses a ball, for example. Obviously, Christensen's goal that he own goal that he scored was a bit of an unlucky one. I don't think it's really his fault, but there we go. But it's that miscommunication that kind of leads me on to the first point, and the first thing which I think we should be trying to exploit in this game. Now, I'm going to directly reference their last game because I think that's the closest that they're going to be to the team that we kind of see. The defense is very similar, in fact the exact same. The back five is the exact same that it was in that United game, and what we can kind of take from the United game and how successful they were is one of the things which I want to talk about is that good delivery from the wide areas really unlocked Leicester. They really struggled when the ball went from a wide area, like for example out here with Neto, and specifically going between the centre back and the full back. When it got into these areas, when the ball gets lofted over into this area, they really struggled to deal with it. And obviously that's where the own goal came from on the opposite side with I think it was Bruno that swung it in, and they just could not deal with the delivery from out wide. And in general, this is the thing which kind of worries me about how Leicester sit back and defend, and why I think that we're going to be quite successful against them, is because even when they were sitting back and trying to defend, they were a bit panicky. They weren't that solid 2 banks of 4 that we like to see in these kind of smaller teams that they like to do this defend and play on the counter. They weren't like that. They were very disorganized. They were very susceptible to things from outside the box, and it wasn't just the deliveries to the far post that they struggled with, but just everything from outside the box. We saw Bruno Fernandes and Garnacho, I believe, score 2 goals from outside the box. They from areas just outside the box, like here, for example. And we've seen recently with players like Pedro Neto that we can score from those chances from outside the box. That's definitely something we can do. Obviously, one of the things that's been a big talking point of this season is how some teams have been able to nullify Cole Palmer and kind of limit him to shots outside the box. I think that this is going to be one of those games where Palmer does really well, not just because the team and the defense is lower quality, but because they're going to allow him to get shots from outside the box. Because they did that against Man United, they didn't really shut them down that well. And we know the quality that Palmer has. If you give him time and space outside the box in those kind of 18 to 25 yard areas, he will score. And I do think he will get a goal or 2 in this game. I think that's an early prediction from me. But it wasn't just the delivery from outside the box, and it wasn't just the shots from outside the box they struggled with. One of the things which they struggled with the most, and one of the things which I think is going to be imperative for this game because of the way that we play specifically with our box midfield and our whole system and what it's designed to do. And I talk about this all the time, but what our system is designed to do is to create 1v1s out wide with our wingers, like we spoke about earlier with Mavididi, and the 1v1s with Jackson up against one of the centre backs, or to kind of drop deep and drag one of the centre backs out of position and create this kind of these kind of individual battles, as it were. One thing that Leicester really struggled with in that game against United was they could not deal with direct dribbling from the wingers out wide. They really struggled when the fullbacks were running back towards their own goal, and this is part of the reason why I think that Mudryk would be a better option than Sancho here, because Sancho, despite being very good at kind of being trickery and kind of trying to unlock defenses with a little bit of skill and a bit of panache, Mudryk is one of those players that will just blast the ball past you and run at you, and I don't think the defenders are going to really like that. Obviously Neto again is one that's really good at doing that, and I think he could have a very good day here if he obviously gets the ball onto his left foot, and he can not only beat his man and cause issues that way, but obviously get into those more central kind of inside 10 positions and take shots from outside the box, which they were kind of susceptible to as well. Now Madueke, again, if he plays, I think he'll do very well here. I've personally put this is just what I think would be a good balanced team with Neto and Mudryk, but to be honest, if we're doing a predicted lineup, I would expect to see Madueke play on this right side with Neto on the left, and we probably wouldn't disrupt the way that we've kind of been playing that way, but regardless, I think that this is an option for us. And the main thing, again, with the wide play and the isolating the fullbacks, is obviously we need to talk about Gusto. He's been a big talking point in general because of the position that he plays and the kind of position that he gets into in this kind of inside 10 role at times. But what we'll probably see in this game, and what I would imagine we'd see, is him making the underlapping runs to the byline from this position, or interchanging with Neto in order to be the player that's going to be out wide here and make the overlaps to get the ball into the box. And obviously when he's doing this, not only can he get out wide and get the balls into the box and be the one that's going to be doing that one-on-one attacking, but he also leaves Neto
open for the pass into this kind of central area, where again he can drive into the central area, receive a pass from Enzo like he did in the Arsenal game, and then obviously shoot from there. Those three things are the main reasons why I think that we will be able to find success and how we'll be able to find success. But the defining thing of this game, and the reason why I kind of highlighted it at the top of this episode, and I hinted at it and I've spoken about it already, is these attackers that Leicester have, and the injuries that they have are going to be the defining factor in this game. I genuinely believe if they score one goal, it will be quite an achievement for them, because the only player they really have that poses much of a threat in my eyes is Mavididi, and if we know that, and he's the only player that can kind of deal damage to us, shutting him down and doubling up on him would probably completely nullify Leicester. And because of that, I just don't think that they're going to be able to score, and that leads us on perfectly well to the score prediction. For a score prediction, I'm going to be predicting another win for Chelsea, and to be honest, I expect it to be rather comfortable. I'm going for a 3-0 result, with Cole Palmer getting 2 goals and Nicholas Jackson getting the other. As ever, I will be live streaming my post-match reactions on this channel after the game with Feeling Blue, so make sure you don't miss that. But if you want something else to watch, YouTube reckons you'll enjoy one of these 2 videos on screen in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on, you Blues.